Hey, yo, welcome back for another episode of the Boston Sports Brothers podcast. Great to be back for another week. We have a lot of meat on the bone and things to dissect this week, and we are so thrilled to have Morey Hershgordon with us from WHDH Channel 7 in Boston, a legendary station. It's been around for a long time. Morey is the lead sports anchor over at WHDH and came to WHDH from WPRI down in Providence. So he's been working the New England sports scene and broadcasting for quite some time here. And he's a 2021 NMSA Rhode Island Sportscaster of the Year. Got a question about that in just a second. And is a graduate of Quinnipiac. So Morey, thank you for joining us this evening. And can you please tell us what in the world NMSA stands for?
I know, right? I had to look that one up too. But thanks so much for having me, guys. It's great to be here. Eric Halpern, mutual friend, reached out, and I was, excited to hop on with you guys and talk sports, especially as it relates to, the Boston sports teams up here. NMSA, I think it's National Media Sports
Association,
National Media Sports Association, I believe it is.
We'll go with it.
So, that was a great honor a couple of years ago in Rhode Island for sure. We're such a small state. Not to poo-poo the award that I got, but you go there and there's award winners from every state, and you're there alongside of guys from Texas, and there's a little bit more competition in states like Pennsylvania. And Bob Sosi was the broadcaster of the year in Massachusetts the year I was there, and got to spend some time with Bob, and I've known Bob for a while now. But it was quite a little feather in my cap there, as kind of I was still kind of early on in the career in Providence, but here we are a few years later, and everything's still rolling. Just hopefully some of these teams around here can get back to their winning ways. Because when I got to New England originally in 2018, we almost had the three championships in a row. I got to Providence in June of 18, so it was Red Sox World Series championship. Patriots beat the Falcons. Bruins should have beat the Blues in Game 7 at home, or taken care of the series a little bit earlier than that. Ultimately got a championship in the Celtics this past spring. But I need to see the year-round championship teams come back in time. So I'm excited to dive into it all tonight.
Well, as we've said I forget who said it on a previous episode, but we're like 3 months out from a duck boat parade, so it's time for another one as always. So,
yeah, exactly.
We'll get going.
Jerry.
Well deserved with the awards, and you certainly have ascended in the media landscape here in the New England area. So many congratulations. We're looking forward to our conversation tonight. And as Morey said, let's talk about some of these teams that and the tenor of tonight's show, it's going to be disappointment, doom and gloom to start, and we're going to get more and more positive as the show goes on. So stick with us here as we keep it rolling. But first and foremost is the Patriots with another just brutal loss to the 49ers yesterday. Nothing really going their way offensively, defensively. I guess special teams with the punter and the kicker is about the only thing that's going well. But if your best thing going is special teams, not much is going well. So let's get the conversation started. Morey, what were your takeaways from the game? And then we'll jump around and get everyone's thoughts and keep things flowing.
Yeah, I don't think the 10 days in between the last time we saw them play against the Jets, that Thursday night disaster on national television in prime time, to the game against the 49ers, a mere 24 hours ago now at the time of this taping, was going to solve like injury issues. And they were going to, do a 180 in terms of like schematically, offensively, defensively, make wholesale changes. But it was supposed to afford them a lot of time to, nail down on fundamentals, to get back to the way they played weeks 1 and weeks 2. And they didn't. And Gerard Mayo said that at the beginning of the year, was like, how are we going to base success for the 2024 Patriots going forward? He's like, it's going to be growth and improvement every week. And they've gone in the opposite direction. Like, they could not have started at a better place for them, playing like a perfect game, right? They've got to play near perfect games. The margin of error is so thin. But they have just gone backwards now in 3 straight weeks, and it's not getting any better. They're not alone. It's not like they're the only team facing injuries. I mean, the defense on the other side of the ball yesterday, arguably out its top player in Hargrave, lost Fred Warner for a bit, had another injury to a linebacker earlier in the week. I mean, like, injuries happen in the NFL. There's no depth. I was pretty high on Gerard Mayo the first couple of weeks of the year. There's clearly been a step back in coaching. There's been a step back in talent. The injuries don't help. And this is where we've arrived. The only reason why I guess we are so down in the dumps right now is because of the week 1 win in Cincinnati. Going into the year, though, I mean, this team's been 1-3 the last couple of years. They're projected to win 4.5 games, 5 games. So they're right on pace to go there 4-12, 4-13, like they were a year ago. So it's not like they're so much better or so much worse than what we expected. It was just, I think the expectations might have gotten pushed a little bit too high after those first couple weeks.
That's a great setting of the table. Who wants to take the baton and run with it? J Matt, welcome back after a few weeks off, just married and off on that honeymoon. You can catch the beginning of a few other episodes. And some
good to be
that.
back. Yeah, no, had a great time in Portugal. Wedding was great.
Nice.
Yeah, it was just, if you've never been, highly recommend. Beautiful country.
Where in Portugal?
We went down to the southern region in Algarve, and then we were in Lisbon for the last few days. So just a great time, easy to get to also. So highly recommend.
Very cool.
But for the game, I think more, you nailed it on the head. I think coaching is a little bit of an issue lately. I want to call out Gerard Mayo. The first drive of the game, the Patriots were driving. They got the ball down to, I think, the 41-yard line of the San Francisco, and it was fourth down. It was 4th and 3, and they decided to take, I think it was 4th and 3. They decided to take a delay game penalty when they could have just, kicked the ball from the 41-yard line. And we saw Joey Slye at the end of half. He kicked the 64-yard field goal. So I think that was a big coaching mistake where you have to at least try Joey Slye, where he kicked a further field goal later in the game. And on the first drive, you have to establish points and some momentum and just either go for it or kick the field goal. I just think you can't punt it there, especially with this team. And what do you have to lose, honestly? That's my point. It's just, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
Not only that, but like right before that play, I think it was 3rd and 3. They decided to pass it, and it was just like, you have Ramondre in the backfield. You have 2 plays to get 3 yards. And that's why it's frustrating. It's like, and again, more, you hit the nail on the head with everything. It comes down to, it really does come down to coaching, and then coaching kind of branches out to everything, fundamentals and so on and so forth like that. But really, that was a really bad play call, especially against the really, really difficult 49ers team on the road in San Francisco. You got to put points on the board early, and to not run it on that 3rd and 3 is just, they're not a passing team. So I didn't understand that. So yeah, who won Mayo?
Yeah, Biggie.
No, I'm with you, Sam. I think that's a great observation. I think I think I can pick on the 3rd and 3 call a little bit more than the 4th and 3. I'm fine punting the ball there. I would like to see them go for it. Maybe kick a field goal, try to get some points on the first drive. It's a much different team when they play from ahead, regardless of the amount of points that they score on that first drive. But we saw the first 2 weeks how much different it is when they do score the first touchdown of the game, that they're just in it. And a team, especially that was coming off of a waxing like they did against the Jets, really needed some positive momentum early. It was the 3rd and 3 call. I think was definitely there, to blame. Ramondre Stevenson, how many times is he going to get, hit in the backfield and lose yards, right? He's going to fall forward. At the worst, it's 4th and 3 again. And if it's 4th and 1, 4th and 2, you're probably going for it there. So I think I like what you said there about the 3rd and 3. 4th and 3, I was fine punting the ball. I was fine taking the delay of game. You want to rely on your defense. You've got a weapon back there in your punter. He's probably your only all-pro, on the team right now. So I was fine with that decision, but 3rd and 3 for sure. Gerard Mayo said they're a running team. We saw them pass 7 out of the first 9 plays against the Jets. They said they were going to get back to the running game this week. And again, Alex Van Pelt and Gerard Mayo can't come through there early on. And those are the scripted plays that we talk about with coaching, right? To your guys' point earlier, it's like you can draw up the first 10 to 15 plays on Wednesday before the game on Sunday. So you're going to have every single scenario, if you get the ball first or when you get the ball first, how you want to approach different parts of the field, different scores, different time, personnel, injuries. You got the ball first. They went right down the field. They had a couple of good series. They got a couple of 3rd downs there, and they had an opportunity to strike first. And they said, you know what? You guys got the ball. We'll put the ball in the hands of Brock Purdy, who's going to make $50+ million, and we'll give the ball to Kyle Shanahan, who's an offensive wizard.
Yeah, they definitely just played right into San Francisco's hands. Gabe, Biggie, what are your takeaways?
For me, again, I think continuation from last week, the defense just really disappointed me again, especially after having more time to prepare this time. I think it's in the past 4 games they've played, they're averaging about 22 points against them, which is very different from last year. It's hard for the Patriots offense to keep up with that pace when they're averaging like 13. I think it's 13 points for. So the loss of Bentley, the loss of Barmore, trading Judon, it's really testing the depth of this defense. And, you know, again, not to harp on Gerard Mayo, but that's a defensive coach right there. That's a defensive player, an all-pro player who's played for the Patriots. And it's really disappointing to me to see this defense come out the way it has in the first kind of 4 games here.
Yeah, I think Big E here, I think, you know, we all went into the season thinking, hey, we're going to hang our hat on defense. And the defense just really hasn't been up to snuff the last couple of weeks, right? Yeah, there are injuries, but like Morey said, there are injuries all over the league, right? So can't look at the Pats defense and say, oh, we have more injuries than another team. I think the thing that was really a big takeaway for me is, you know, we are getting dominated in the time of possession in these games. And a big reason for that is we are leading the league in 3 and outs. So there's clearly a huge issue on offense. And, you know, we're averaging less than 2 seconds to throw the ball, which as a quarterback gives whoever the quarterback is, because I don't think Drake May is going to fix the situation, very little time to read any type of sort of progressions. And it also is giving the wide receivers very little time to get open. That is, you know, the offensive line. It's kind of piecemeal together. In general, we have a talent issue on this team. It's going to be a long season. And I think we just need to look for hopefully some small improvements along the way, because I think the wins are not going to come aplenty here. They're going to kind of come very, very small whenever we can get them. And, you know, I don't expect to see us win. Maybe we'll win next week against Miami. Miami, I think, is coming off some issues of their own, but we got some problems.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of last year. The team doesn't feel like they've taken a step forward. You know, the coaching, I think this is to be expected for a rookie head coach and somebody who really hasn't even held an official title as a coordinator. And I think it's even more difficult coming out from the shadow of Belichick, where, you know, what the expectations of this team have been for so long, and nobody's thinking that they're making the playoffs or going on a run, but it puts that in a spotlight that much more. And he was awful yesterday. I mean, not just with the decisions on the field, but the 2 challenges. I mean, the Kittle catch that wasn't a catch that he didn't challenge, and then the one that he did challenge with Ayuk. Kittle's a monster. That catch that he made in the corner of the end zone was perhaps the catch of the year so far in the entire league. The positivity train for the Patriots is officially, you know, stalled right now until there's any representation that they're going to move forward. There's no function of their offense. Stevenson continues to fumble the ball. It's a comedy of errors. And by the 4th quarter, you're sitting there saying to yourself, like, do I even like continue to watch this, or am I like better off getting dinner going here and calling it a day and you know, switching the focus to the Connecticut Sun, who we'll talk about a little bit later on. But it's bad. It's bad. I don't even know what else there is to really say. It's just, this is the state of the team. Not much has changed, and we're in for a long one here.
Hey, they're sticking with the plan with Drake, though. They're not putting in Drake May anytime soon. Morey, do you have any thoughts about the Drake May, Jacoby Brissett situation?
Oh, he's muted.
There we are. Sorry about that.
All good.
I would not play Drake. I've been against playing him for a while. The original plan, talking to a lot of my producers and team here in the office at Channel 7, was, you know, get a veteran quarterback, draft Marvin Harrison Jr., draft an offensive lineman at the top of the draft, and then maybe try to trade back into the first round and get, you know, a lower level quarterback prospect, you know, once they were firm in the number 3 spot. Now that they have Drake May, and you look at this roster, there's no reason to play him. We just went through it with Mac Jones the last couple of years. The kid's got promise. Could Drake May have played yesterday in mop-up time similar to what he did in week 3? He could have. You could have given him some live bullets, but right now there's nothing to gain. Nothing to gain from him handing the ball off, potentially risking injury. Risking an injury at this point in a meaningless week 4 game when you're going to win 3 or 4 games this season is not worth hitting the ceiling for this guy down the line. Like, there's no point in him getting injured now and then not being able to practice and continue to improve on the field, because that's really where the growth is going to come, is the 4 or 5 days a week when they practice leading up to the game. If you try to fit a square peg in a round hole, just for a couple of minutes for one possession and to call it, oh, he got some action in an NFL game, to me, I don't think is it. So yeah, so for me, I think, you know, you continue to sit Drake May. Jacoby Brissett was paid $8 million to come in and take a beating. If he gets hurt, go get Bailey Zappi again. Go get another veteran quarterback to come in and do the same exact thing. You're not going to compete with Drake May. You're not going to compete with any quarterback out there. The roster's not ready. And David Andrews goes down yesterday. Fourth straight game with a new left tackle. I saw a new offensive line for the first 4 games the last 2 years. I mean, the list goes on and on, like kind of like what Josh was saying. I mean, there's not really much to talk about right now at this point with the Pats, and you just kind of have to kind of wait and see how it goes. They're gonna have a winnable game against the Dolphins. You know, it'd be nice if this team could kind of hang around 500, a game or two below, where they go into November still with a path to make the playoffs, so that some of their younger guys who are taking on more leadership roles, like a Kyle Duggar who got injured yesterday, or like a Ramondre Stevenson can play, Pop Douglas can play in more meaningful games than just, you know, playing out the string, kind of like the Red Sox did toward the end of the year. Like, you'd like them to feel like games matter in November and December, because they haven't now for the last couple of years. But no, Drake May should not go anywhere near the field.
Yeah, I think you stay the course, and you hope for a top 5 pick next year, and you get the kid a left tackle and start rebuilding the line, maybe get a center later on in the draft, because like you said, David Andrews went down. His years are unfortunately numbered. But yeah, stay the course. Play Jacoby as long as he can take the hits. And if he goes down, I agree with you, Morey. Get a veteran. Don't put Drake in. There's no point in doing it. Sit him and see how he can grow off the field right now. Because he's not going to grow on the field. He's just going to get crushed.
I have a question for the group, and anyone can answer this. If this was the plan, to have a veteran QB come in and take the reins for a year or two, to me, I'm extremely disappointed that it was Jacoby Brissett. Why didn't you go get Ryan Tannehill or Joe Flacco or Sam Darnold, who's lighting up the league right now, or do it? You know, anyone. Baker's a little bit different. He just got paid, but like any of these quarterbacks in the $10 to $15 million range, where it's like something.
He's got familiarity with Van Pelt, but he's got
familiarity
with Van Pelt, and he's also got familiarity with the franchise. So I think that's really probably one of the main reasons why they went with Jacoby Brissett.
I get why they went with him. I'm asking, are you disappointed that they went with him and not one of the other people that they could have gone with?
I think there's a talent issue, and I don't know how much better a $10 or $15 million quarterback, like you mentioned, would get you what 2 more wins?
Would you
6? It's not.
Would you have been more excited to have Sam Darnold coming into the season?
I mean, he's lighting it up. That's a
well. I mean, but
he wouldn't light it up
with
the Patriots.
Good point.
Yeah, there's a talent issue. Yeah, exactly.
It's a talent issue.
And the revolving door of the offensive line, as Morey stated, there hasn't been a consistent offensive line that started in a 2-year span. That is an unbelievable nugget of information. So more disappointment for the Patriots. Their schedule does soften a little bit against some teams where I guess you could consider them winnable games here, and you're not going up against a murderer's row of quarterbacks. So, we'll continue to tune in and follow the team, but just give us something to be excited about and to be looking forward to and whatnot. So, all right, well, we're going to continue some of the disappointment train. Don't worry, though. It's coming. The good stuff's coming soon. But we got to talk about the end of the season for the Red Sox, and officially end at the most average record that you could, 81-81, a true 500 team, all the stats pretty much down the middle. But there's a couple things to dissect here. Joe Castig last game, we'll talk about that in a moment. The whole Kenley Jansen situation at the end of the season, and some of the remarks made today, which is Monday, at the end of season press conference. So, Morey, Sam is our resident baseball guy, and we let him jump into the Red Sox each and every week. So, Sam, without further ado, take us to the end of the season, the official end of the season. 2024 Red Sox season is here. Krasner.
It is over, gentlemen. Ladies, boys, and girls. I mean, hey, what were you gonna expect? I mean, everyone kind of predicted them to be average going into the season, and that's exactly what we got. So there's not really too much to talk about with them. I mean, they had the end of the year meetings, and I was listening to Matt McCarthy, well, not Matt McCarthy, but the baseball hour on the way home, and Carabas was really deflated about just how Sam Kennedy, who else? And the other guys up top were speaking. Craig Breslow. and yeah, it's just like they were just like scripted, like whatever, just to it's depressing because like I say every single episode, you know exactly what we need and they have the resources to go and get it, but they're just not going to do it. So I'll let you guys kind of chip away and then we'll kind of chat about it.
Yeah, disappointment once again with the Red Sox. I think the press conference today was what you said, just that boilerplate, like here's what we're gonna do. We've talked about the offseason and some of the needs, you know, to part with some of the prospects, trade some of the roster. They have too much left-handed hitting. And you know, go into next year with a better roster and a ability to win some games and make the playoffs. Morey, what was it like covering the Red Sox this year over at Channel 7 and just the day in and day out of having to cover a mediocre team?
Yeah, no, it wasn't fun. I mean, take it back to spring training when we were there in February, and you know, we were surprised that Kenley Jansen was even on the roster at that point. And then, you know, you could have set the wager at, you know, minus 1,000 that he'd be off the roster by the trade deadline, right? I mean, like the fact that like they ended with the guy, I mean, says something about a team that, you know, I know Sam said we expected them to kind of be mediocre and be average and be okay, but I mean, this team was picked to finish last in the division, right? I mean, we knew the Orioles and the Yankees were going to be playoff contenders, pennant chasers. The Rays were never expected to be 500. And the Jays still have all this talent, and they were still in their championship window before injuries to Bichette, and you know they're still kicking the tires there with Vlad Jr. and they've got some good pitching, and they still felt like they could go win. So I think I think the Red Sox. I mean, I think they blew the doors off of the expectations this year. It was again similar to the Patriots because they won week 1, and now we kind of altered expectations in the season because the Sox finished that high of the first half at 11 games over 500. We got this clouded expectation of like, oh my God, they're a real true contender. They never were. Their pitching was amazing early on because Andrew Bailey was a new pitching coach and he gave them some techniques that I think took the league by storm. March and April, they were fantastic. Everybody else started to catch on May and June, and they kind of stayed afloat there toward July. And quite frankly, the AL wasn't that great this year. Baseball wasn't that great this year in general, outside of a few good teams. I mean, it's as open of a postseason as we can remember, right, on the onset of it. So then you go into July and you're like, okay, you know, they're contenders now, kind of. And then they just got smacked in the face when they went out to the West Coast, right? They could barely handle the Rockies. They lost to the Dodgers in agonizing fashion, and they just kept continuing sliding. I will give Craig Breslow credit. He did buy at the deadline. He did not sell. He didn't buy like a true contender should buy, but he bought. That plan flopped. Arguably the piece that's going to help them the most down the line, Quinn Priester, could only get up for the final game of the season. And then it was just painful to watch in September as, you know, the Royals lose 7 games twice in a 5-week span. The Twins couldn't get their tail out of their rear end. And the Tigers, who were 10 games out in August, just somehow blow past everybody, and they're going to get in comfortably as the 5 seed. So I think it was a great season in terms of finding out some of the core pieces going forward. I think individually it was great for Ceddanne Rafaela, who I think is a face of the franchise type of player, not maybe on the talent aspect, but in terms of the position he plays, his personality. He's the closest thing they've got to a Manny type of player again. He smiles. He loves the moment. As a 9-hole hitter, it felt like every time he was up with runners in scoring position, he'd get a big hit. He'd get his bat on the ball. And I know he had his strikeout issues, and I know he had his terrible games. But for a kid who's splitting time between shortstop and center field, doesn't know which glove he's going to use, doesn't know where he's going to play on a daily basis, and gets thrown out there every single game. I mean, he was a pretty lovable, fun guy to root for on a nightly basis. Darren Duran has a great season. Is that the peak? Does he have another level? We'll have to see. Wilyer Abreu, clearly either a trade chip or a guy who, going forward, I think when he gets streaky, can carry a team. The injury to Trevor Story wasn't great. Rafael Devers, love him playing almost every single game this year until he shut it down toward the end, you know, battling through those injuries he had. I think there were some individual highlights, and that's not even touching some of the starting pitching that I think you'll have going forward. I think it was a unique season to look at from the perspective of, all right, now they have some more established MLB guys. They haven't done it for long enough, but you're going in a little bit more hopeful next season. Now, can they blend the minor league talent and can they spend the money? That's really the big the big piece now going forward is, are they going to spend the money like they should in the top 5 market? As you guys mentioned, what was said today at the season-ending press conference was kind of what we've heard the last couple of years. 5 out of the last 6 years, they haven't made the postseason. They continue not to spend. They're these fake contenders in a way. And outside of 2021, this is a team that, has largely looked more like, the Royals or the Tigers or the White Sox, or pick your middle market to smaller market franchise across the MLB, rather than what they should be in the Boston Red Sox. But it was a unique season, and it was one that I enjoyed. I mean, we went in thinking, 74 wins. What was the win band was like, 70 to 75. People were taking the under at like 76.5. They improved by 7 games. They finished third in the East. I mean, I think a lot of people would have signed up for that in February.
I think we needed that because it has been doom and gloom for the Red Sox. But you did point out some things that are positives from the season, and we said we're getting there. So let's focus on some of the things Morey just said. Gabe, Big E.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd want to point out here is just the ownership group, the organization is out of touch with the fan base. They these answers they gave today just really make me not want to go. I didn't go to Fenway at all this year. I didn't want to spend my money. I don't really think that ownership group deserves it, right?
We have
they don't deserve
news.
my fandom. Oh, we have breaking news.
Yeah, someone sound the alarm. Pete Rose has passed away. Pete Rose,
Wow,
jeez,
at the age of 83, has passed away. So a terrible day on the on the death front. There's no other way to put it. With Pete Rose and Dikembe Mutombo, who passed away.
Maybe now they'll put him in the Hall of Fame
as well.
Wait, that's terrible.
What is it? Posthumously? I don't know how to say that.
Posthumously.
Thank you.
Posthumously.
Sorry to interrupt there, E, but I figured that coming across was going to be big news. And look at gambling. I mean, sorry to go off on a sidetrack, but look at gambling now and the legality and how involved it is with all the sports. And for him to not be in the Hall of Fame because of that is, he shouldn't have gambled on baseball. But let's look at reality of 2024 here and what he did in the game.
Yeah, terrible news about that. But digressing back to the Red Sox here real quick. Ownership group out of touch with the fan base. They need to put a representative product on the field. They have not done so for a while. 2021 was a fluke when you look at the last 6 years. So that's step one, invest money in the team. Step two, I think the other thing that they can do as well is they need to find someone who's a leader. And I love Devers. Devers is such an awesome player, but he doesn't have that leadership type quality. And I think there's been a huge vacuum there since you have someone like, oh my God, blanking on his name.
Bogarts?
Since Bogarts left, right? They should have never let Bogarts go in the first place, right? But there really isn't a leader on the team that's really stepped into that role. And I think that's a huge issue. So I'm not saying you need to spend a ton of money to get someone who's a leader, but you need to find someone that the rest of the team respects.
Well, and that's why I think Cedar Rafaela can sort of fill that void. And I know it is early, but Jaron Duran has never been great with the media, played a lot this year and produced, but then had that little incident there a couple weeks ago, with the fan. And you need a guy who's going to post every single day and who can also talk in the clubhouse, regardless of win or loss, which is why I think, Cedar is the closest they have to that type of piece. Whether you want to trust him to do that or not is a different story.
It also makes me wonder why Trevor Story is not a little bit more vocal, signing the 5-year deal, for 100 some odd million that he did.
Can't stay on the field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's hard to, when you're away from the team for months at a time and you don't play. That's why they would show, when you're watching the games on NESN, they'd show him next to Alex Cora for most of the games as he was, once we found out that it was a possibility he was going to come back and play in September. That's why they kept showing him next to Cora. He was like the players coach. He was like the liaison between the bench manager and the players and represent the franchise. So that's why, a guy like Cedar Rafaela, Trevor Story, if he can get healthy and play and post, or somebody else that they bring in via free agency, I think that's a big piece that they're missing because they have it in the manager, right? They have it in the manager. He's kind of protecting the front office and the guys upstairs who make all the real important decisions. I guess they have it in Craig Breslow a little bit. I think Craig's a great guy, but he's also protecting his job as well to some extent. They need a guy, on the roster who's gonna tell it like it is day in and day out. And that's the beauty of baseball. 162 games, a lot of ups and a lot of downs, a lot of different than a lot of other sports. You need a guy who's going to talk all the time. And I think, the guys on the beat would tell you the same.
Yeah, well, a guy who did talk all the time is Joe Castiglione, and somebody who got a much deserved send off yesterday from the team, and is honestly, the last of these broadcasters who have retired this year. Himself, Mike Gorman, Jack Edwards. You've had Remdog who passed away unfortunately at too early of an age, and all of these childhood broadcasters that we grew up with here are pretty much now have retired or have moved on to greener pastures. But Joe Castiglione, iconic calls of so many different games. I mean, I think I can recite word for word his 04 winning call, and I think most Sox fans can. Just a great career for Joe Castig, and the best to him in his retirement. And let's keep it moving here over to Causeway Street. Gabe, you're rocking all the logos of Causeway Street, both in your background and
conflict of interest here.
Yeah, a little bit. So I'll let you take it away. You start with whichever team you want to, and we'll keep this bus moving.
Good team, bad team. No. I'll start with the Bruins here, just because that's kind of what I know better. Before we get into all the Swayman talk, I do just want to highlight what they've done in the preseason a little bit. Their record as of now stands at 1-2-1. They have a game against the Flyers tomorrow, who they lost their last game. They lost in overtime to. So far, haven't been too impressed with this team. I know it's just preseason, so I'm not going to look too much into the offense or defense there. They've kind of mixed in some, I would say, some prospect talent with, now they're starting to put some starters in to try to figure out what lines would kind of gel best going into the beginning of the season. But here we go into the goalie talk. Brandon Bussey has looked
bad.
like really bad, a shell of himself. I don't know if it's just the brighter lights of being in the bigger organization now or what, but hopefully he can kind of figure that out, because I thought he would be potentially our starting goalie going into the season, but it looks like Korpisalo won that job. He's going to be our starting goaltender against the Florida Panthers in that opening game. He's looked pretty solid in preseason, I'm not going to lie. Maybe he just needed a change of scenery or something of that nature. But yeah,
I'd want to get out of Ottawa too.
Yeah, I'd want to get out of Ottawa. Feel for Olmark there, but so we'll see. Going on to the Swayman situation, there was a lot of good stuff going on there today. Cam Neely was he's so over it, and you can tell like he just is not a fan of whether it's Louis Gross, who is the agent of Jeremy Swayman, or Jeremy Swayman himself. Yeah, Cam Neely is not having it. He wants his $64 million goaltender out on the ice as soon as possible. So that's kind of Bruins news right now. We were going to get a little bit more into this Louis Gross guy that we've been hearing a lot about recently. He represents William Nylander, who some of you may know. He was had the longest holdout in the salary cap era. In 2017 and 2018. He went all the way to that December 1st deadline. Eventually did get a deal done, but he held out for the whole time he could. And then he also represents our good friend Torrey Krug, and we know what happened there. Torrey Krug wasn't able to get an extension with the Bruins, so he went off to St. Louis and ends up winning a cup against us. So Louis Gross, it's a new name that I might want to add to the penalty box this week. I don't know. I don't know if it's as much Swayman or Louis Gross, or I'm sure both of them are kind of playing into it.
We had ownership and management in the penalty box a few weeks ago. I think that they're out now, and I think it's now this whole situation has done a 180 over the last month or so, where it's like, Bruins, what the hell are you doing in terms of getting him signed? And now it looks like they've put a more than fair offer out there, and he's just standing pat. Anyone else want to chime in on the
don't take management off the hook. They totally mismanaged the situation.
True.
They traded Olmark in the offseason when They didn't have Swayman locked away. They gave up all the leverage. I still think like they're partially to blame, but I also feel like, they gotta try and make amends here. And if they can't, they gotta trade him, because this is not something that they can have hanging over the franchise until December 1st.
Yeah. J-Matt, Kraz, any thoughts on this situation?
No, I was gonna I mean, I was listening a little bit on the radio the other day. It's exactly what Gabe was saying about that agent just having another player that held out till December. And I don't know. I'm not really too big in hockey, but like everyone else stated, I don't know how you trade away a goalie when you don't already have one already locked away. Or
I
management.
mean, the Bruins are known to be a team that build from the goalie out. They've been doing that for years, and built on their defensive system. And goalie Bob can only work his magic so much with Korpisalo and with Bussy. So they have to sign Swayman, get it done. Swayman has to just cave too. I just don't. I don't know. Swayman hasn't proven himself to be that elite talent yet. So I think he should take the $64 million, be happy with that. He's still young enough where he can get another contract too in the future. So I think it's time to get it done.
Yeah, and on that point, Josh, Swayman isn't that type of player who's logged starting goaltender minutes and games. He was, he split time with Ullmark through those years, and before that, he was in Providence and then behind people in on the Bruins organization. So to try to reset the market for goalies, asking for like $10.5 million over 8 years is a little bit crazy. I understand the tactic of doing that and kind of trying to just set your value high and hoping that you'll get, something close to that. But just as you said, like he's not that elite goalie. He's not that goalie in Tampa Bay who's, Vasilevsky, who's he's won multiple cups and he has a big contract, but he deserved that contract. So it's they need to find a middle ground and get it done soon.
Yes, yeah, he hasn't proven himself to be at that elite level. 8-8 is certainly more than a fair offer. I agree with what Eric and J Matt said. Don't let management off the hook, because they could have avoided this situation. I actually put out on the Twitter a couple weeks, not maybe like a week ago. I said, after knowing everything we know, would you prefer that the Bruins had traded Swayman and kept Ullmark? And it was a 50-50 split based on maybe 60-70 responses. So interesting to see that. But we'll see how the start of the season goes. Next week we face off Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday, Tuesday. I don't know.
10-8. Yeah.
10-8. Tuesday versus the Florida Panthers. So exciting for the Bruins to get underway regardless of the goalie situation. And we'll keep things moving to the sweatshirt, Gabe, and the
Morey, do you have any hot takes on the
Bruins?
Bruins?
Sorry, Morey, didn't let you get in there on the Bruins. Anything on them before we move to Celtics?
I mean, I'm all for players asking what they believe they're worth. I think Jeremy Swayman has the potential to be the top 3-5 goaltender in the league. He's not yet, though. He hasn't proven it for long enough. He doesn't have a long enough track record. He's got, a really good postseason last year for 2 series. He's been really good in one regular season where he was like the 1A goaltender, right? I need you to be 1. You got to throw out the A, you got to throw out the B. You need to be the 1. You need to be the guy that plays 70, 75%. I know a lot of the teams now are adopting the 2 goalie mentality going forward in the NHL and in the regular season. Not quite the split that the Bruins have employed, but you need to go out there and you need to play 2/3, 3/4 of the games in order to command that money. But he's got all the right in the world to go out there and ask for what he believes he's worth. And we'll see. It's interesting that Louis Gross, has the track record with those players that Gabe mentioned who he represents, and some of those past deals that got done, but it ultimately took a long time. The one parting thought of the Bruins that I have is that if you're management and if you're the head coach, you pray to God that Jonas Korpisalo starts off hot, because if he doesn't start off hot and you're going to turn to Brandon Bussy after him and you've got no solution in net after you traded Ullmark, you thought you didn't have any leverage then going into the season. They're going to have 0 leverage come November 1st if the Bruins get off to like a 500 start. I mean, this is a roster, again, that's going to be in the playoffs. This is a franchise that is synonymous with postseason hockey, right? And they've made it to 3 cups now in the last 12, 13 years. So this is a model organization compared to the two that we just got done talking about. So let's kind of keep that in perspective as well. But if they don't get representative goaltending play through the first like 10 to 12 games, the barks are going to continue to get louder and louder and louder. And Swayman's just going to sit there and he's going to continue to see that money rise and rise and rise. And I don't think the Bruins right now can afford to trade Swayman if they don't start out well, or if they don't think they can get a deal done, because then how are you going to keep Brad Marchand when he's up at the end of the year? How are you going to tell the top free agents that you just signed to come into Boston this past offseason that, hey, we're still in our championship window? How are you going to tell guys like Patrice Bergeron and Charlie McAvoy, who are supposed to be pillars of this organization going forward for the next half decade, that, hey, we mean business, we want to win championships? If they don't have a good goaltender in net, I think they're lost. So if they get really good the other option is they get really good goaltending play, and then you can say, ha, 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 wag the middle finger at Jeremy Swayman and say, see, like, we have a good backup. But then are you really that confident? Is that kind of a bluff? Are you confident in Korpisalo, or is it more just going to be a hot month or two, and then eventually you'll go back to Swayman? So it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. But you're going to learn a lot about the Bruins and about both sides in the first, I would say, like 2 to 3 to 4 weeks of the season, even way before that December 1st date.
Yeah, it's almost like the price on Swayman's contract will go up $100K with every loss potentially. I'm just kidding. Let's keep things moving and do a quick Celtics minute, and then Morey we'll wrap things up with you. We have a few career oriented questions that we'll get to after we touch on the Celtics here. But media day last week for the Celtics, some interesting nuggets coming out of media day. The Jaylen Brown disrespect towards the Pistons was hilarious, with running the offense through Peyton, Pritchard, and Hauser. Lonnie Walker seems to impress. Derek White said that he's been showing out and it's just been, sort of every day there ready to try and make this roster. This team feels like it has something special going on, and we've talked about the motivation as they head into this season and all the offseason things that happen to result in that motivation. And I'm really excited for the Celtics, and they get things started on Friday with a little action in the Middle East, and I think this is the first game, Abu Dhabi, with a 12 o'clock start time, and then again on Sunday. So any Celtics thoughts from any of the fellas here before we wrap things up on Around Town and the four major sports?
Yeah, I'll get into it. I want to talk a little bit about Lonnie Walker. I mean, we already know about the guys that we, are on our roster, the Jays, Al, Kristaps, our bench. What are your guys' thoughts on Lonnie Walker potentially playing in the G League? I don't know if you guys heard that and what your thoughts are about that.
Let those main Celtics cook, baby.
Hey, I love the fact he's willing to do it, and he's willing to do whatever they need. So if they want him to get playing time up in Maine, and that's going to be the best way for him to help the organization, at least to start off the bat. Love the fact that he's willing to do whatever is being asked. So hopefully he'll get some minutes with the big team here throughout the season. Just injuries and the back-to-backs, I highly expect he'll get a great opportunity, but just love the attitude.
I like the fact that this team's starting off the preseason overseas, building a little bit more of that team camaraderie. We already know they have it. They have the chemistry, but brings me back to the 08 team when they had the preseason games in Rome. Yeah, in Ubuntu, that whole thing. They have the swag. They have that dynasty ambition. So it kind of I like it. I think they can build some chemistry again, and we'll see. Sky's the limit with them. They need to stay healthy, and playoffs are the key. The regular season is just dust in the wind right now. Let's get to the playoffs.
Yeah. Does the NBA know not to give them any more motivation? Like, what are they doing? They just keep giving the Jays more. They just keep giving this team more and more motivation. And it's like, oh man.
Yeah.
Really, when you thought last year was bad.
I know. And for me, it's same thing, Sam. It's like you hear how hard they're working in the gym. And it's like, oh man, does that make you want to run through a wall? It's like they just won a championship and now they're working even harder for that next one. That's exactly what you want to hear as a Celtics fan. I think they had an interview today with Drew Holiday. He said that he missed the first day of practice last year because he was kind of in that trading process. And he said, oh, I kind of wish I missed the first day today as well. It was that hard. So I'm happy that Coach Missoula's our coach. I would not have been saying that early last year, but he seems to get these guys like in that mindset, ready to go whenever he needs them. So it's pretty impressive. I'm excited.
He got
Morey,
disrespected too. I think he was I think ranked what, like a top 15 coach in the league. I think
11,
potentially
number
11. Yeah.
Couldn't even
So
crack the top 10. Biggie,
yeah,
you got a question?
yeah, Morey, I just want to ask you, do you have any fun interactions or anything that was like really interesting from media day with the Celtics?
Yeah, no, unfortunately I was here due to like anchoring responsibilities. So I wasn't there this year. I was there last year when Drew got introduced. But no, I mean no interactions in terms of the Celtics. I mean, we had a great spring following them every step of the way, being on the road with them. And I know Sam Hauser and his family pretty well from covering him and his brother when I started my career out in Wisconsin. So I've kind of seen Sam and the family rise from an undrafted free agent, just an assassin at Marquette, to then getting a little bit more national love at Virginia and then coming to Boston. But no, I mean, it's a phenomenal team. They've had to have the two leaders that they have in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown with pretty impeccable resumes and impeccable personalities. And they've got quite a disposition about, themselves. And then you've got Brad Stevens and you've got, Joe Mazzulla. And I know he had a touch in the past, but that's all gone now. And I mean, they're upstanding guys. They're likable guys. They're guys you can root for. I mean, I know they're the Celtics, and I know they're one of the preeminent franchises in the NBA that a lot of teams and fans of opposing teams don't like. But if you look at it, I mean, like they're starting five great guys: Drew Holiday, great guy; Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford. How could you not like the trusty old vet in Al, and the guys off the bench? I mean, Sam Hauser's a peach, and Peyton Pritchard's a pretty great guy. I mean, they're all fierce competitors on the court, but like off the court, like no baggage, easy team to root for, work their tails off. Oh, by the way, they steamrolled everybody last year. I mean, like it's pretty ho-hum right now for the Celtics, which is incredible. To think that they went from what they were the last like 5-6 years to then taking it up a level last year to now thinking that they can even go higher. Yeah, my only thought going into the season is now like what changes with Karl Anthony Towns on the Knicks. Outside of that, I think everything else is fairly status quo. It's now the Knicks can maybe play a little bit of five out. They lose some punch off the bench, losing DiVincenzo. But if you're the Knicks, you have to make that trade. I don't know what it means for Minnesota. I'm not really focused on Minnesota right now, but for the Knicks, I mean, we're going to see it right away. We're going to see it opening night. Right there in the Garden. And I know Kristaps Porzingis isn't going to play that night, but you're going to at least see, how the Knicks change, having a five-man who can stretch the floor. Having Mitchell Robinson right behind him as an athletic five is good. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. But I mean, there's no doubt the Celtics are head and shoulders above everybody. They brought back 14 of the 15 guys from last year, 13 guys.
Yeah, I think the Knicks are more talented with Karl Anthony Towns, but did they lose that like Knicks mentality with the departure of DiVincenzo and Randall, and that they embody New York, and that how the love for that team, what you talk about love for teams last year, was on another level. And I am a little sad we're not going to see the Villanova Knicks get to play full force there. But no, the East is a little bit different. There's some teams. Morey, you're a Philly guy and grew up around those parts, and I think that Philly is a team to look out for with Paul George on their squad now. So the NBA and the landscape of the NBA is always fun to see, and health plays a huge factor as always. So Celtics can stay healthy; they can make another run. Mazzulla has them in the mindset, I think, of you are capable of being a team that can be talked about like the Warriors, like the Spurs, like the Celtics of the 80s and so on and so forth, that you win multiple championships here and you get put into that conversation. So that's what's on the line for the Celtics this year, starting off first and next, as Morey said, a few weeks from now. And Morey, we'll wrap things up here with you. We thank you so much for joining us. Morey's coming to us live from the newsroom, which is fantastic. You can see all the lights and whatnot going on in the background. But Morey, I think we want to ask, like, what was your introduction to sports growing up, and what sort of facilitated you wanting to enter into this business and become a news anchor and broadcast sports?
Yeah, so like all of us, played from a young age. Grew up outside of a big town that lives and breathes sports, blue collar town, similar to Boston, right? I grew up about 15 minutes north of Philadelphia, 20 minutes north. So was into all four of the big pro teams down there, and a really good college basketball environment as well. My dad grew up in Syracuse a little bit, so I'm a big fan of the 2-3 zone, even though Jim Boeheim is no longer there, roaming the sidelines. But yeah, I mean, I had a love. I played baseball, basketball.
Okay.
Growing up, I was going to catch at Ithaca, and then decided that I'd be better off covering Division I sports at Quinnipiac, which turned out to be a pretty okay decision on my part. I mean, the men's hockey team went to the national championship game. I was hallmates with Connor Clifton and Devontae's freshman and junior year. And obviously Connor played with the Bees on the Cup team in 19 and kind of made a little name for himself with Cliffy hockey. And then Devontae's won a Stanley Cup alongside of Cale Makar, out in Colorado. So definitely got my feet wet in terms of like covering Division I sports and, eventual pro athletes, and women's basketball team made a Sweet 16 run. But it all really starts back, even before playing organized sports, like five, maybe 6 years old. My maternal grandfather was blind, lost his eyesight due to a rare genetic disease when he was 40, well before I was born, and was sighted for the first 40 years of his life. So grew up loving sports, attended Penn State, big football fan, so on and so forth. But when he lost his vision, still had a love for sports. So he would listen to games on the radio. Me, as a youngster, would go over to my grandparents' house on, say, like a Saturday night in the summertime, and I'd give him like play-by-play. I'd mute the television and give him play-by-play, my own sideline reports for like the 7:00 game 2, middle of 3-game set, Phillies, Mets, Phillies, Braves, filling the team, sleep over. The next night, do like the Sunday getaway game at 1:00. And that was really kind of how I started like honing my voice and deciding that, broadcasting might be a thing down the line once the ball stops bouncing, once, we all end the dream of becoming a professional sports player at 8, 9, 10 years old, whenever that happens. So started there. Unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, but have a couple of his things on my desk. Was a blind golfer. Helped blind children play golf, started a junior blind golfers program within Mid-Atlantic Junior Blind Golfers down in Philadelphia, helped kids from 5 different states, from Delaware to New York. I mean, it was a tremendous man. So, had an impact hugely on my life, also impacted through the game of sports with others, and started from there, did a high school, college. Somebody was lucky enough to, I was lucky enough, I should say, to be hired by somebody out in the middle of Wisconsin to put my mug on TV to do sports in a little market. Made plenty of mistakes there, continued to move up, got a chance in Providence, and now we're here in Boston. But it all goes back to my grandfather. I mean, he was the first ever audience I had, and I never go on the air, never start a day without like thinking about him and the impact that he had on me and kind of the position that I'm at now. So it's been quite a journey, and we're still only rounding first base. Got a long way to go.
Awesome story.
It's a great story.
It hit me in the feels a little bit. My grandfather recently passed away. And the night that he ended up passing away, I was at the Sox game, and I was with a bunch of coworkers, one who had never been to a game before, who was asking all the questions about like, so what's going on here? Like, why is he running to the base? Like, what, like, no idea in terms of what was happening with the game. And another coworker who was a little bit older, in his 60s, and we were just talking about baseball and generations of how that is sort of ingrained in you. So to hear that, and I recalled going to games with my grandfather, walking from almost where your place is in Brookline, Gabe, over to Fenway, and just like, I think we can all confidently say that our parents, grandparents are huge reasons why we're doing this and behind our fandom. And they ingrained sports in people and the fandom before. We've been incredibly fortunate here to see the success, but they endured a lot of pain before that. But now that's amazing, Morey, in terms of that sort of origin story there. And your grandfather seems like an absolutely incredible man that did a lot for the community, and especially those who are blind. So awesome stuff there. Anyone else want to ask the next question? Because I might need a tissue.
Yeah, Morey. So you took over for a legend, Joe Amorosino. He was the sports director for what, 20+ years at Channel 7. What's your day-to-day like, and what was it like trying to fill those shoes?
Yeah, I mean, quite, huge shoes to fill for sure. So much respect for Joe and the job he did. It was also funny, somebody pointed out to me that he was at WPRI too before he came up to Channel 7 in the early 90s, I believe. He was the weekend guy down there. I think he was there when John Butchergrass was actually at PRI as well. I think before Butch, he went to Pittsburgh and then eventually got up to Bristol and the worldwide leader. But I mean, replacing a legend is something I think about a lot. Every time you go on the air, you're trying to engage a new audience. You never know who's going to be watching for the first time. You want to make sure you give your best effort every single time out there. But the department I have here is phenomenal. The producers are tremendous. The photographers are tremendous. And I'm not just saying that because I'm at work here. Like I truly do believe that. I saw it from afar when I was in Providence for almost 6 years, because Providence and the Boston media markets travel a lot together. We're at many of the same press conferences. So I had an understanding of kind of what the Boston TV landscape was before I got into it. So that's what made the job even more appealing when it did open. And then I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity, and it's great. I mean, my day to day is, I'm primarily 4 to 12, 3:30 to 11:30, whatever you want to call it. Here for the 4, 5, 6 o'clock news. We have sports at 6, 9, 10, 11. But if there's big breaking news, or there's just big news in general, and we know how important sports are to the fabric of the community here in Boston and the greater Massachusetts area. I mean, like today, I was in the 4 and the 5 o'clock about the Swayman news. Had Cam Neely not come out and said what he said, we probably would have gone Red Sox, in the 4 and 5 o'clock, because, it's such a big day. And then if neither of those teams were starting and ending their season respectively, we would have had a big story on the Patriots, because Mondays are big days to dissect the Pats. So sports are just such an important part of the daily life in the greater Boston area, in New England in general. And that's what makes me feel at home at the end of the day. Home for me is Philly. I rarely get home now. My wife is from outside of Hartford, diehard Boston sports fan. We just recently moved to the Metro West. I've got a sister-in-law up here. Like, this is home. Like, between going to college in Connecticut, being in Providence for 5.5, 6 years, now being in Boston for a year plus, it's been like 10 years now. And this is home. And this is the type of a city that I always dreamed to get to. I just didn't think it would happen, so quickly. But definitely try to earn my keep every single day when I walk into the office, and definitely know that a guy like Joe and many others, whether they were here at Channel 7 or across the market, Channel 4, Channel 5, you name it, you've got high standards, high expectations. The teams have high expectations. We hold them to high expectations. The viewers do the same for us who watch us on a nightly basis.
Amazing. I mean, and you've earned your keep, and you continue to do it. You obviously, with the story you just told, and it's the work that you've put in since that young age to get to this point. So it's recognized. Continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And we'll part with this. What is the favorite career moment that you've had so far, and anything that you want to plug, other than everybody should be tuning into Channel 7 for their news every day?
I would say the springtime, right? I mean, June, being on the parquet, the confetti falling. I mean, it was incredible. And to have the guests that we did, one of our EPs in sports, Kuhn Lamb, who's been in the market a long time, had a really good relationship with Jackie McMullen. So for Jackie McMullen to be our analyst and kind of come out of retirement a little bit, right? She's been retired, but she came back to do post game for the Celtics for us all postseason, and Dan Shaughnessy and Gary Washburn. I mean, for me to be standing next to, people that have been covering the Celtics longer than I've been alive was like beyond pinch me moment. So, it was incredible. We were certainly disappointed in Dallas Game 4. We thought, Kristaps was putting on the uniform. He's taking warm-ups. He's going to be there to smoke the cigar in the locker room and be out there for pictures. But the way that it happened, I think, was perfect, right? I mean, they lose, they get blown out. Everyone's like, all right, who cares? They're coming back home. Everyone was able to enjoy their weekend. And then that Monday night, there in June was something to remember. And, now they're going to try to be the first team in 6 years to repeat, and, hopefully do something that, the big three couldn't do 15 years ago now. And I think that's why you guys talk about Mazzulla being so hard on his team early, is because you look back and you've got such fond memories about 08, but then it's like, could have had one in 10, could have had one in 12. Like, that's what Mazzulla is trying to not have happen here down the line. Is like, you don't want the could haves, the should haves. It's an expensive roster. They got to make sure that they stay task at hand and win during this championship window. So I could be updating this answer a year from now, right? 9 months from now, maybe it's another one. Maybe it's the back-to-back, because that would be even sweeter. But for sure, that's a long-winded answer. But definitely. And I've had a lot of cool stuff, but to be there on the parquet, I think was second to none.
Amazing. And anything, where can people find you? Social media, and obviously each night on news.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, at M Hershgordon, and obviously on the news here. What's great about us is we're an independent, so we travel a lot more than most of the other stations. And I mean, this past spring it was spring training, it was the Frozen Four for BU and BC, it was opening day, we traveled for every road postseason Celtics game. I mean, we really do a lot. We act as a network here, and Sunday nights 11:30 as well, Cumberland Farms Sports Extra. So I'm always a part of the conversation. Love talking sports, and especially when it comes to these four, because every team is so unique in and of itself, and they're all on a different path right now to chase a championship. And some are further behind than others. Some are super close. Some are coming off of a championship, like we just discussed. And I think that's what makes it great. There's never a slow time here, right? There's 13 cities in the country with 4 pro teams, and this is one of them. Like, you have to always remember that we're lucky. It's great. It's a privilege. Even when a team comes off of a 30-13 drubbing like they did yesterday, and they only scored 3 points the week before, we get to talk about it. There's some cities out there that would kill to have a football team that right now they're like, twiddling their fingers until basketball or hockey season comes around, and they don't have baseball. So they've been waiting since April, since their team last played. So, but it's all fun. It's great. Blessed to be here. Happy to be on with you guys for sure. And, anytime you want to talk going forward in the future, my line's always open.
Can't thank you enough.
We'll definitely have you back on, and we absolutely do live in the best sports city in the country, and we can't thank you enough for your time, Morey. So that'll do it with Morey. We have a few final segments that we'll get to here on the Boston Sports Brothers podcast in just a moment. Morey, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it, guys.
Thank you, Morey.
Thank you so much.
Morey. Have a good night.
All
You
right.
too.
All right, that's Morey Hershgordon, WHDH lead sports anchor, Channel 7, if you still got that cable, like myself. And
Hanging on.
Yeah, hanging on for dear life. Well, there's a few things that we didn't get to with Morey, and one of them is let's talk about cable, because fucking I just kept my language so clean for the last
now
hour.
We can go
I'm so proud of
R-rated.
myself.
Yay.
But NESN, what a debacle. What
Cheap
a mess
bastard.
with that.
What a shit show.
Yeah, fuck them.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm not. No.
You can't send your announcers on a Acela train to New York City and comp a night on a hotel. Like, that's insane to me. That's gotta be. That's what, a couple $1,000s, maybe, like, max for NESN to spend. And they can't even do that. That's a couple subscriptions for them. How much it costs a month for people.
John Henry's
like,
a fucking weirdo, man.
I love how they told people go to the NHL Network. They have the broadcast, and people go to the NHL Network, and they don't have the broadcast. You literally could not listen to the game. I mean, you probably could on 98.5, but you could not watch the game, which is
$30 a month is just, you can't.
It's highway robbery.
Tough to justify with that.
Yeah, and you
especially when they suck.
Yeah,
$360
NESN is cutting corners now because people aren't anteing up for that subscription. But man, is that a bad look? Like,
awful, so bad.
I don't want to listen to the New York.
No, just don't even bother. Don't give us the MSG feed. Like, I don't need to listen to the other team's home announcers on my home network. Like,
but like, this is what we're talking about.
Unbelievable.
This is what we're talking about with John Henry, like, not having his hand in too many like avenues and too many sports teams, and like, you can't send your local team to like it's 300 miles away. It's just, it really is crazy to me.
Not even that. You couldn't have done the broadcast from the fucking studio.
Agreed.
If you didn't want to have them travel.
Buddy, that's a great point.
So bad. And another thing, it's like Judd Surratt and Brickley haven't worked together. Like, they could use the time together to get into a flow, to get into a rhythm.
Yeah, it's not just the players.
Ultimate cheap out move. Ultimate fuck you to the fans. Ultimate just slap in the face to the entire like community of Bruins people. Just like, what is this?
Just remember who owns NESN.
Yeah,
it's not the Jacobs family.
It's Henry.
It is John Henry with his soft serve machine in the
No,
melting
no more ice cream machine. He's done.
Henry.
I'm throwing that thing in the fucking Charles River. He's done. He doesn't get nothing anymore. I'm tired of him until he proves himself with that shit network or with the Red Sox. He's sitting there.
Open your wallet,
but that's exactly my issue. I'm not going to blame the Bruins organization for it, because who knows how much power and say they have over any of this. This comes down to John Henry and the mismanagement of NESN. If I'm the Bruins after that debacle, I see how long my contract with NESN is, and I start looking for alternative options, right?
98.5.
Well, no, you got it. Well,
they already are 95. No, but
Sports Boston.
That's what I meant. NBC Sports Boston. Yeah.
Well, that's a whole different issue.
Tough with the Celtics.
I'm pretty sure NBC Sports Boston has some sort of affiliation with the Celtics, so I'm not sure they could do that with the Bruins. But neither here nor there. NESN is a big
That's a NESN
problem.
plus.
Big problem. Well, NBC Sports Boston broadcasts our lovely Connecticut Sun and number one, who aren't
Number
playing on that
one.
network anymore. They're playing on the big boys of ESPN and ABC. A big win versus the Indiana Fever to move on to round 2, taking down Rookie of the Year Caitlin Clark in 2 games, which was great to see. Fantastic ending to that game versus the Fever, and a fantastic ending last night to game 1 of this series versus the Minnesota Lynx. So, Gabe, break it down. We'll talk a little Connecticut Sun and number one.
Son of number one. Yeah, they crushed it last night. It was a really fun game to watch. I honestly had it on over the Bills Baltimore game because that was kind of a wash. So yeah, we're in the semifinals now, or the Sun are in the semifinals. Excuse me, I'm not on the team. As much as I wish I could be, but
they're our team. They're our team.
So after taking down the Fever, they're now taking the Minnesota Lynx on in the semifinals. They defeated the Lynx in game 1 last night, 73-70. Again, it was a barn burner. I mean, lights out shooting on both ends. Marina Mabry is her. She got slotted into the starting lineup for this game and absolutely dominated. She had 20 points, 6 of those, 6 being 3-pointers. And they weren't only just like, they were clutch 3-pointers. When they were down by like 5 points, she would come up the court and just nail a 3 and get them right back in it. And it was really impressive to see that. Alyssa Thomas continues to kind of be, she almost had another triple-double. So she's really almost like that glue woman of the team, kind of like Marcus Smart was, or what we thought he was for the Celtics back in the day, a couple of years ago. But so yeah, Sun, what an entertaining game that was. I'm pumped for the game tomorrow. They're gonna be at Minnesota again, playing a little later at 9:30 just because of the time difference. But hopefully we can continue on this path of destruction and get to the finals and win our first championship.
Would love to see it.
What's the format?
Where's
What's
the
format
parade?
for this?
So
2-2-1?
Best
5 games. Yeah.
So 2-2-1?
2-2. Yeah, I believe so. 2-2-1.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So
unlike the weird first round,
they're march.
Yeah.
They would march through Mohegan Sun. To the
That'd be
trophy.
sick. I
They
was
go
gonna say
around.
that.
You know, they'd start at the slots, then they go to the blackjack
Let's
table.
go.
Then they go to the high roller.
Do you think
poker
they would
room.
That'd be
have
electric.
a duck boat parade?
No, I bet you they do something in Hartford, like whatever they did for UConn when they've won.
Oh,
That's what I would.
You got to bring it up here somewhere.
Nah, they'll bring
It's
the trophy
Connecticut.
around to your middle school lunchtime or something at some point.
Yeah.
New Haven.
But no,
Oh my God.
we're on the Connecticut Sun train. It's been awesome to see. Definitely sort of appointment television to watch. And
Did you see our friend Kayla Burton tweeting out at Portnoy?
yeah, I did see
when her
Kayla.
sister was draining 3s on Clark.
And
I did see that.
Put the clamps on Caitlin Clark. It was great. Yeah, sorry Portnoy, but it's okay to be a fan of Caitlin Clark, and
Boston family royalty has spoken.
Give Portnoy some credit. I think he's injected some fandom into the WNBA. So with his support of Clark. So game 2 Tuesday evening. So this episode will be out by the time game 2 rolls around. Hopefully it's a 2-0 series lead for the Sun, and then they come back home to hopefully close things out versus Minnesota. And we'll do a quick college football minute here. BC, we got to see a fantastic comeback for them versus Western Kentucky with the backup quarterback, Grayson James. Fantastic comeback to win 21-20. We watched that one Saturday afternoon in real time. Next game up versus Virginia, 12 p.m. Saturday. And a few final college football nuggets. That Bama-Georgia game was fantastic. I fell asleep, so I didn't get to see the comeback, but it was great. And Miami had a huge comeback as well. So any college football notes, fellas, before we move forward and along?
Just want to say that we had a nice BC comeback that we witnessed on the boat, the Hakuna Matata, which we will get to in our Oh Yeah segment. But yeah, it was a great comeback. They were down, I think 2 scores going into the 4th quarter. Showed some grit and balls with a backup quarterback. They're not ranked, not yet, which I think was a little odd. I think they even moved back a little bit with the comeback win. So we'll see with them. They're fringe top 25 team, but they're fun. They can clearly win, and we'll see what they can do.
Yeah. I just have one point for the Boston College Eagles. This is the type of win that brings a team together and it gets them to start believing. You know, with their backup, bringing them back from you know, coming back and winning that game, and then hopefully Castellanos will be okay to play in the next game and kind of just take off from there. I mean, they're entering ACC play now, so they really can't afford to lose many games now moving forward. So we'll see. I hope Castellanos is good to go, and the sky's the limit for this team if that's the case.
Yeah, playing a meaningful bowl game, hopefully at the end of the year, whether that's the Orange Bowl or if you can run the table somehow and collect some wins, maybe they backdoor their way into the playoffs. I don't see that happening, but with the expansion, you never know what's possible. If they would have to run the table for that to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
All right, moving forward, penalty box, John Henry we talked about, but there's another John who belongs in the penalty box, and he's out on the West Coast, and that is none other than John Fisher, owner of the Oakland, soon-to-be Sacramento A's. When you talk about cheap, when you talk about just owners who ruin things for fans, he is certainly at the top of that list. For whatever reason, the situation with the A's and all the footage that came out of that last series and that last game hit me right in the feels. If that happened around here to any of our teams, I'd be devastated. And you could see the literal devastation, and not only Oakland with them in the A's, but all their teams. It's been gut-wrenching to see, but this one seemed to hit just in a different way. As we talked about with Morey and just how sports are fabrics of things, I think baseball is the one sport that is generational. Perhaps more so than others. Any thoughts on this Oakland A's situation before we talk about our
just terrible. I mean, the A's have been there for a long time, and I don't know if any of you guys have had the pleasure, because I'm going to using that word kind of tongue in cheek here, but I've been to the Coliseum. The Coliseum sucks. You know, I think like the players deserve better, and as much as I'm sad that they're leaving the city of Oakland, I'm glad they're not going to play there anymore, because it's just, you hear stories about sewage just leaking into the locker room. And, you know, I think we all saw Moneyball back in the day and read the book and saw that they had to pay for cans of Cokes. Like, that is real life for the Oakland A's. So I'm really hopeful that things get better. Candidly, once they move to Vegas, hopefully John Fisher sells the team, walks away with some money, and they get an actual owner there that actually cares about the team, because the league is better when the A's are doing well.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Gabe.
Well, I mean, yes, obviously very sad. You never want to see like a little girl crying on her father's chest during the last game of their season there. You know, it's just terrible. But the collector inside of me was like, oh man, I wish I was there. I'd be ripping out seats. I'd be taking flags down. I'd be putting some dirt into a glass jar. Yeah, I would have been a menace out there trying to collect as much as I could.
Gabe
Well,
running over
and
the
not for
Park
nothing,
Bridge
I mean,
with a seat.
there were 5 different offers on the table for John Fisher, and he didn't take one of them. So I mean, at the end of the day, I really don't think he wanted to keep them in Oakland.
Nope.
Just call a spade a spade.
Well,
Yeah.
they weren't going to put any public money towards it. So being a cheapskate, if you're not going to get the public's money, that means you got to put your own in. Let's go to another community that will pay us. That's exactly John.
Or let's
Fisher's
go to a
mindset.
place where we're gonna make money.
Yeah, well, they'll make money in Vegas, but it'll be worse than Fenway with the opposing teams, fandoms being there, and you know, game misconduct permanently in the penalty box for John Fisher. So we'll move on to some more positives. You know what time it is. He's in the top corner in that green shirt.
It's time for some oh
yeah.
Oh yeah, we got a big
Oh, yeah.
from
Oh, yeah.
this weekend. The Boston Sports Brothers had a great time out on the water. Krasner was surveying the scene at the King Richard's Fair, making sure the turkey legs are still good, but he was able to meet up with us at the end of the day. But a great day Saturday, gentlemen. Feel free to break it down.
It means no worries for the rest of your days.
It's a problem-free philosophy.
Hakuna Matata.
Ooh. Oh. No, a great day.
Beautiful boat, Plotty. Can't thank you enough for the invite. you know, a late summer, early fall day out on the water down in Newport. You can't beat it,
Gorgeous.
especially with, you know, oh yeah, the technology too. I mean, able to watch on our cell phones college football while we're just floating around in the Newport Harbor, you know, eating lunch. It really can't get any better than that. So, great time. Really appreciate it. We missed you out there, Kraz. But we had a great, oh yeah, dinner at the Han Palace, all five of us
Oh,
together, which
yeah.
was
Oh yeah.
fantastic. I know I had
Very
my
yummy.
my leftovers for lunch, which were just as good. Hit well. So
Maybe even better.
maybe, but yeah, great day. Great day.
The Han Palace is a legendary Chinese restaurant that if you're in Warwick, Rhode Island, or really within the area, if you fly out of TF Green Airport, it is worth going out of your way to the Han Palace.
Get that. Take that combination plate on the flight with you. You won't be upset.
You might piss off your
Piss
neighbor
off the
on
whole
flight.
plane.
They might be jealous,
That
saying, "Where'd you get that?"
very well could be, but it is it's a hidden gem in Warwick. And as we said, if you ever find your way down there, you can find some very delicious and very affordable Chinese food. It was awesome to have everyone out. Kraz, it might have been the first time. It certainly won't be the last time. So future Boston Sports Brothers days out on the boat, and we discussed it. But there will be. I'm penciling this in as a goal for 2025. We will record an episode of the Boston Sports Brothers podcast from the boat. So mark me down for that, or you can throw me in the penalty box.
That'd be
Two more. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Want to give an oh yeah to Monday Night Football double headers the last couple weeks. Kind of digging, more than just one game on Monday night to round out the week. So not sure who in the NFL made that decision. Hopefully it wasn't Roger Goodell because fuck Goodell. But
Wasn't it Mother Nature?
No, I don't think so.
Really? I thought this.
No, they
wasn't
did this last
postponed.
week too, Josh.
Oh, I thought this was postponed because of Mother Nature.
No, I think
Weird.
this is like the thing they're doing for our first couple weeks of the season before they
Weird.
start having buys. So hey, anyways, I'll take credit for it. And then last oh yeah that I just want to throw out here is want to give an oh yeah to Adrian Wojnarowski. We all affectionately know as Woj, stepping away from his gig at ESPN and heading to St. Bonaventure to be the GM of their program there for basketball. So I don't think that we ever saw, someone just drop bombs like Woj did and really create that culture and, create a little bit of a turf war with him and Shams. Shams, it's your game now, buddy. Go run with it. Unless Adam Schefter steps over as the ultimate insider, which I saw a little bit earlier today, that he might be angling to be the insider for the NBA and NFL for ESPN. So get ready for your dose of Shefty.
I heard Passan too, the MLB reporter, was potentially vying for a Woj bomb.
I think that all those ESPN people might dip their toes in the NBA world for a little bit. So no, Woj was fantastic. You always, between him and Shams, to get your NBA news, those are the two follows for sure. So
and Josh, now he's in the A10 getting ready to play our roadie Rams.
I know. So
and my UMass Minutemen.
Woj has become what was a friend of the podcast, if you will, to an enemy of the podcast now with an A10 rivalry. He called Mark Schmidt the best coach in the A10 in the last 20 years. And I was like, there was this guy, his name's Dan Hurley. He coached at URI. He might have won the last
pretty good.
couple of championships. I know he's not there anymore, but no, Mark, all I remember of Mark Schmidt when we were at school was he must have had some sort of injury because he was scooting around on one of those scooters where you have one leg bent. But no, I'm looking forward to it. I have no idea what to expect when it comes to URI basketball this season, but the game versus St. Bonaventure will be one to keep an eye out for sure. Any Yah-Ohs? I don't know if we have any Yah-Ohs. We kind of addressed those in the penalty box and throughout the show.
I kind of have two Yah-Ohs.
Oh, God.
It's just the loss of Dikembe Mutombo and Pete Rose, like two big sports figures in their respective sports of basketball and baseball. For different reasons. But losing them both on the same day, really kind of just hits home. And it's not that we saw Dikembe play a little bit. We never got to see Pete Rose, but it's kind of weird seeing some of these guys who we grew up a little bit watching really start to not be here anymore. So sad day for us as fans of those sports and those players. So that's my Yah-Oh of the week.
Yeah.
Agreed, Eric. I have one other yacht. Actually, real quick. UNLV, pay your players. If you're gonna commit to the NIL and you're gonna ask transfers to play at your school, and you're gonna say that you're gonna give them money, nut up and give them their money. So UNLV, yao to them.
And they still won without them. It's like crazy.
It's just, I don't know. It's not
It's
a good
crazy,
look.
man.
Not
It's
a good
crazy.
Not a good look.
Crazy, man.
Yeah. That bad look. You got to pay the players at this point. You got to pay to play, and don't make guarantees that you can't uphold to your players.
Yeah.
Back to Mutombo 1 second.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a more iconic gesture that a player made and is trademarked beyond what he did with the finger wag. I can't think of anything else.
No.
You know, the Antoine Walker wiggle was something. And you know, the
The Steph Curry little wiggle too.
Yeah, he's got
yeah,
that
but
Jimmy.
nothing compares to Dikembe Mutombo and the finger wag. So rest in peace to and on Mutombo as well. What he did globally for basketball and what he specifically did in Africa to bring basketball to those communities should not be understated or overlooked. He was an ambassador, global ambassador for the game. So a tough day in the NBA and MLB with those passings. So that'll do it for the Pike. We talked about everything going on this upcoming week. We got a preseason game for the Celtics versus the Nuggets in Abu Dhabi with some weird start times on Friday at noontime and Sunday, I believe, at 10 a.m. So pregame your football Sunday with a little Celtics preseason. Patriots then right into the game versus the Dolphins. A winnable game with the Dolphins not having any quarterbacks. So
We might win.
Maybe. Don't count on it. And that's the week ahead. Red Sox.
Don't forget to tune into the Connecticut Sun on Tuesday night at 9:30 too. They're on the Pike too.
So. Absolutely. So full slate here is in winter sports gets started here in just a week or so with the Bruins and a few weeks down the road for the Celtics. So we'll have a lot to talk about with them. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure as always. Great to have you back. Matt, Jesus, great to have you back. And we ride again next week. We have a really special guest next week's episode. We're going to talk a little NBA and get a little bit behind the scenes in terms of how an NBA team operates. So there's a little nugget in terms of who the guest will be next week. We will see you all back then, gentlemen. Au revoir. Oh, one last. Oh yeah, that Jimmy Buffett song is fucking great.
Oh, so good.
If I don't see you guys until next week, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Peace out, gentlemen.
Good night, brothers.
Near far wherever you are. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.